Hello and welcome to another hardware review with myself and Marta, and here we are looking at the Easy SMX controller for PC, PS3 and mobile. While I am going to focus primarily on PC usage scenarios, I did of course conduct tests on the console and mobile side as well. Before I delve into the review, this is a sponsored video which has been sponsored by Easy SMX. With that said, however, let's talk facts. The layout and appearance of the Easy SMX controller will be very familiar to those of you who use Old Faithful, the wired Xbox 360 controller for your PC gaming. It has the standard button and colour layout of the Xbox 360 controller, as well as of course the middle button for activation and the placement of both the thumbsticks and the D-pad. An extra addition that you will notice is the turbo button, which is quite the old school inclusion that I didn't really find a use for in normal play and testing. Underneath the turbo button, however, is a small LED which will light up when switched to the different modes available which affect the D-pad. If you wanted to use the D-pad as you would the left joystick, then you would make use of the mode switching. Throughout this review, I will of course be comparing the Easy SMX to a wired Xbox 360 controller, as that is the default for most PC gamers when using a controller. However, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the significant price difference between the two. In stores, the Xbox 360 is often in the £35 to £40 region, depending on the retailer, or you can get it for just under £30 on Amazon. The SMX is half the price at £14.99. With that said, let's tackle the D-pad first, as that is one of the main criticisms of the Xbox 360 controller. Now, the SMX does have a very similar D-pad, with the only difference being that the raised sections on each of the directions is ever so slightly more raised than that of the Xbox 360. This does make it a little clearer when trying to do inputs on, say, a fighting game, but it does unfortunately suffer from some of the problems that the Xbox 360 D-pad has, even if it doesn't feel quite as mushy, but the difference is extremely minimal. The thumbsticks, conversely, don't have as deep a divot as that of the Xbox 360, meaning that it is slightly easier for your fingers to slip off during gameplay. However, this is an extremely small niggle, as it's not enough to be annoying, and it is again, very minimal difference in the grip of the thumbsticks. The bumpers and triggers also have the exact same layout and naming conventions as that of Microsoft's official controller, with the only difference being a slightly louder click and more plasticky feel of the triggers of the SMX. But given this controller is half the price, I can't exactly fault it too much for feeling less premium, because, well, it is. Overall, though, the controller does not feel cheap. It has the same weight to it as that of the Xbox 360 controller, and it doesn't have that "this will break if you breathe on it" wrong feel of some third-party controllers. It feels sturdy, even if you can tell it is a little cheaper in materials. The main criticism I have of the SMX is that it is a bit smaller overall than that of the Xbox 360 controller. Now, this might just be me because I have quite large hands, and the Xbox 360 is pretty much a perfect fit for them, although I do actually prefer the Xbox One controller. The SMX just felt a teensy bit too small for my hand span and did get a little bit uncomfortable, but that is purely a personal thing, so if you're a larger handed person like myself, do keep that in mind. Now, the other thing that I do need to mention in the negative column for the SMX is indie games. Now, of course, I tested this on various games to make sure it worked straight out of the box, and for AAA games, for reference, I tested it on both Dark Souls 3 and Rise of the Tomb Raider, as well as, of course, games like Alan Wake and, of course, Wolfenstein 2, although why would you want to play Wolfenstein 2 on a controller? But the point is, it worked instantly with no issue. However, the indie games I tried it on didn't recognise it at all. There was just no response from the game on either the menu or within the game. Now, this is due to the fact that this controller is X input. To get the SMX working on these indie games, I had to use the program X360CE to change the X input of the SMX to the usual direct input. This extra step and hassle, as it did take a little work to get it working correctly, is definitely a black mark for the SMX. Before I close out the video, I did test the functionality on both console and mobile, as I mentioned, and I found no usage problems. This controller, does not work on the vanilla Xbox One console, but in all fairness, it doesn't make any claims that it will. Overall, I would say that the Easy SMX is a pretty good, cheap alternative for both PC gamers and console gamers looking for a replacement or even just a new controller without having to spend the earth. You aren't sacrificing a huge amount in overall quality and feel, but of course you are sacrificing a bit. And if you do play a lot of indie games, do be warned that this controller will take some work to play nice with those games. However, if you're primarily worried about your AAA games, that sort of thing, and you're not too fussed about the extra work of firing up X360 CE, that is sometimes the nature of PC gaming, then I would happily recommend the Easy SMX as a cheaper alternative that isn't going to break the second you put it down heavier than you would a feather. So with all that said, that's me done for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.